state. Number one, as I indicated at the end of talk yesterday, we have to keep things in the proper perspective and to realize that the machlokas is about the religious Zionism, about the state, but not about the importance of the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, as we discussed yesterday and is elaborated on in that book which I made reference to, Zion Today, by Rav Yoel Schwartz. What are the reasons for the great opposition which exists in some circles for positions of the state to religious Zionism? So there are a number of factors. Number one, there's a Gemara towards the end of Shavuos that speaks, towards the end of Ksubas, that speaks of 3 Shavuos based on Psukim Shir Hashirim that the Jewish people swore, so to speak. One of them is Shelo Ya'alu B'choma or Shelo Ya'alu Kachoma, will not rebel against the nation. But those that understood based on that Gemara that the final redemption is meant to come about in a miraculous fashion rather than us being involved in any way in that process. Not meant to rebel against the nation. There are many that have written, even from Haredi circles, they felt that that's something which is no longer of a relevance. I think the Steipler, who I don't think would be suspected by anybody as wearing a kippah suga, whatever, as being from the national religious camp. But I think that he wrote that he doesn't think that's particularly irrelevant. And there are various factors why that would be so. Amongst them, the fact.
Rabbi, where's the Gemara? Where's the Gemara?
In the last parak of the Ksubas that talks about Inyanei Eretz Yisrael. Ask me later. I'll be happy to track it down. Ishbati has come Benos Yerushalayim, Mitzvaos, B'chulai. So there the Gemara speaks of the Gimel Shavuos. I think Rabbi Shefter mentioned that once the rugged Shavar was asked what his opinion is on the Gimel Shavuos. And he wrote something about the period between Shabbat Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. He didn't want to get involved in any political discussions. He was asked about the Gimel Shavuos, or about the 3 weeks. But in any case, so the Gemara there speaks of the Gimel Shavuos. So those that suggest that from the time of the Balfour Declaration in 1914, I think it was, that the British declared that they'll view favorably the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. Then he said, Sar Pachad HaShavuos. Sar Pachad HaShavuos. I saw it today. I was looking for something in the biography of the Chavetz Chaim. It says the Chavetz Chaim was very happy at the time of the Balfour Declaration, just hoped that the Jewish people wouldn't miss the opportunity to pray that secularists would perhaps bring about a situation where we would not be zocha for the Yeshua that potentially could have come about. Somebody tells me that it's 1917, the Balfour Declaration, not 1914. Thank you, Josh. Okay, and then I get a C in history. Others have pointed out that amongst the Gimel Shavuos is not only that we won't rebel against the nation, but also that the nations won't give us too hard a time. The nations, they won't overly torture the Jewish people. So they have not kept their share. So since they didn't keep their share, then we don't have the obligation to keep our share as well. Another reason for the opposition to Zionism was the secularist nature of the Zionist Hashkafa. It's not. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question on the Shavuos?
Please.
Are these Shavuos independent in that, like, we took an oath, like the Jewish people collectively took an oath, and like the non-Jewish people collectively took an oath in theory? Or why would we say that they're based on each other? Like if we violate our side, then they don't have to keep theirs, and vice versa.
Well,
or are they independent?
Keep in mind, first let's point out, and some have stated, the fact that this Gemara is some sort of Agadita. We don't find any historical events associated with this. But since the Shavuos both have to do with the relationship between the Jewish people and the nations, then it's not strange to assume that they would be interdependent. In other words, we're meant to be able to survive. We're not meant to be able to perhaps try to rebel against them, but that's only if they play by the game, by the rules. If they don't play by the rules, then, as I said, I think Rabbi Biner drew up a long list of explanations why that would be so. And if you want to read about those that feel that the Gimel Shavuos are still binding, go to the Current Yavnat Library and read the book by Yoel Moshe. Yoel Moshe is written by the Satmar Rebbe. The expression by Yoel Moshe, of course, comes from the pasuk by Yoel Moshe Lashevet Ish, that Moshe Rabbeinu decided to move in to live with Yisrael. And the Gemara says that he swore that he wouldn't leave Yisrael's house without permission. So Rabbi Yoel Moshe, Rabbi Yoel Satmar, the Satmar Rebbe, his book about the Gimel Shavuos is called Vayol Moshe. So I think the library has a copy. Library here, okay, in New York. Those that live in New York City, you can go to Williamsburg and pick up a copy as well. In any case,
thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, my pleasure. So in terms of the secular nature, so it's not only that the Zionists were not religious, but also there were those that saw Zionism as an alternative expression of Judaism, as an alternative to Torah and mitzvahs. There was, in fact, some sort of declaration of in one of the Zionist congresses that Zionism has nothing to do with religion. That Zionism has nothing to do with religion. Rav Kook, in a response to that, a response which is not found in the standard writings of Rav Kook. I read in some newspaper where somebody pointed out that Rav Kook said something to the effect that this gezerah, this declaration, is worse for the Jewish people than the gezeros of Paro and Haman. Whereas Rav Kook, he saw what Zionism is all about, is all about Torah and mitzvahs. In fact, Rav Kook's view on the secularists being involved in development of the land, he saw that love of the land as something which stemmed not from just nationalist, secularist nationalist feelings, there's something which stemmed from their Jewish soul and something which he therefore thought was worthy of praise and could serve as a basis for a holier future in the country. Now, I think it could be said, I think it would be pretty safe to say that there's an awful lot that's missing. There's an awful lot that's lacking. Nobody would say that we've that we're close to the Geulah Shlema. But on the other hand, the cup is certainly partially full. How full? That one could discuss, but certainly partially full, and we have to give thanks. We have to appreciate what we do have. There's certainly many things that are missing. I mean, the secular nature of things in the government, the new government that is being formed, is one which is unfortunately one that is not leaves a lot to be desired in terms of so many areas, in terms of Shabbos, in terms of love of the land, in terms of Jewish education. But on the other hand, we do have to appreciate what we have. In Halach, and immediately afterwards, what's the next line? Who is Chazan today? Why B'nai Chutzlaretz? Everybody was there. The guys in in Chutzlaretz, so everybody was their own Chazan. So right after what's the next line? Ana Hashem Moshiana. On one hand, Nagilim Nism Chabo. On the other hand, Ana Hashem Moshiana. It was a Rav from Yeshivat Hakot, I think it taught Rav Friedman So he used to, on Yom Haatzmaut, used to say Hallel in the morning, and then go to Toldos Aaron and to Torah to say Slichos. He felt that there's room for saying Hallel. There's also room for saying Slichos. Of course, that's the opposite of Baron Gurnion's Shita, which many people hold by, and he's saying not Hallel, not Slichos. But he said both Hallel and Slichos. They don't cancel each other out. There's room for saying Hallel, there's room for saying Slichos. Parenthetically, there's a book that I would assume many are familiar with, a book called Sefer Toda'ah, the book of our heritage, which has about the various days in the calendar, the various times, the various Moadim. Very beautiful Sefer. Probably you guys got a copy for your Bar Mitzvah, the book of our heritage. So in any case, there was a section there about Yom Haatzmaut. Don't bother to try to find it because it's not there. Originally it was part of the Sefer, but the author acknowledges, he feels somewhat uncomfortable with this, but the author acknowledges that he took it out because he wanted his book to sell. And he realized that in many circles, if he puts in that section, then the book simply is not going to sell. So in any case, so he has a section where he talks, and he points out that some people feel that Yom Haatzmaut is the most significant day since the creation of the world. And some people say that's the most awful thing which has ever happened to Jewish people. And he thinks that the truth is somewhere in the middle, something pretty remarkable. But on the other hand, those interested, so something which you can probably track down. I have some copy at home. I don't remember how many pages it is, but try to think of some way of giving it to you, those that would be interested. I have the Hebrew version rather than the English. Another point I'd like to make, by the way, just concerning that point, Halacha says that if a person has a relative that passes away, close relative that passes away, then one is meant to say two brachos. If that relative leaves him some significant Yerusha, we're learning Yesh Nochman, right? Hopefully we'll get to that soon. If a relative passes away and leaves a Yerusha, then one is meant to say Baruch Dayan Emes. On the other hand, one is also meant to say Tova Meitiv or Shachiana. I discussed with someone who said that that's for whatever reason, perhaps it's not the common practice, whatever. But in any case, so we see that these two are not mutually exclusive. On one hand, for a person to say Dayana Emes, on the other hand, to give thanks for that which he has to be thankful for. I would also like to add that the motivation for our position, whatever position we take, concerning Yom Haatzmaut and the state in general, our motivation for celebrating Yom Haatzmaut should be our love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our love of His holy land, our desire to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that which He has given us, rather than our desire for machlokas. After all, everybody loves a good fight. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but it's nice to get into an argument when you feel that you're right, when you feel that you're fighting a holy war. That's why holy wars are so dangerous. A person feels that it's a mitzvah to get involved. So unfortunately, sometimes people will take positions, will get into arguments where they just perhaps not always l'shem shamayim. With respect to Hallel and Yom Haatzmaut, I don't remember it's Rav Zevin or Rav Kasher, I think makes the Menachem Kasher, I think he makes the point that Hallel and Yom Haatzmaut is presumably most Rabbanan, whereas Machlokas is also Midaraisa. You have to keep things in their proper perspective. Remember Rabbi Soloveitchik, I was in YU at a time when Rabbi Soloveitchik was in his later years, and Rabbi Soloveitchik had some apartment there in the YU, and he davened in some minyan that took place next door. And just so happened that that was the Bnei Akivanik minyan. And on Yom Haatzmaut, somebody asked him if they should say Hallel, and Rabbi Soloveitchik said say Hallel after davening without a bracha. He was very much opposed changing Minhagei Yisrael and changing things around the davening. In that sense, he was very conservative, conservative with a small c, not big c. In any case, the Chazan thought that he needed to show Rabbi Soloveitchik a thing or two about Eretz Yisrael, so he said Hallel with a bracha right after davening. So I wasn't in the shir at the time, but apparently that day in shir, Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke about the fact that with all the chavivos of Eretz Yisrael, all the importance of Eretz Yisrael, nevertheless, you have to keep things in their proper perspective, and not to tamper with what you're not meant to tamper, to understand that Eretz Yisrael is very, very important. It's very important, one of the Taryag mitzvahs, but other mitzvahs, and at that time, he also spoke about the fact that if a person is able to contribute more to Klal Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, then in such situations perhaps might be beneficial for him to stick around Chutz La'aretz and then come to Eretz Yisrael. That's it's important to keep things in their proper perspective. Somebody once related to me that there was some machlokas in some shul in England concerning whether when saying the Tefillah L'Shlom HaMedina, the person holding the Sefer Torah should be standing or sitting. And apparently, once while this machlokas was going on, so Chas v'Shalom, the Sefer Torah fell. And the people that said that meant to be standing with the Sefer Torah said, well, that's why the Sefer Torah fell, because you guys were sitting down. And the people that said, you meant to be sitting down said, I'll tell you why the Sefer Torah fell. Those are you guys wanted to stand with the Sefer Torah. I have a third shot on why the Sefer Torah fell. Because these guys were fighting over such nonsense. What difference does it make whether you stand with the Sefer Torah, or sit with the Sefer Torah, or dance with the Sefer Torah when you say the Tefillah L'Shlom HaMedina? Let's keep things, let's keep in mind what's Ikar and what's Tapa.
Rebbe?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask, what's the halachic makor for saying Hallel and Psukei Zimra of Shabbos and Haftorah on Yom Haatzmaut?
Something which was suggested by I think the Rabbanut at some point in the past, Rabbanut Rashid, had such a takana. Not everybody does that. I think, as I mentioned, Rabbi Soloveitchik, he didn't like to tamper around with the davening so what are the specific? There's some sefer which when you come back to Karm B'Yavna, they have to lend you about Hilchot Yom Haatzmaut Yom Yerushalayim. The Rav Ori Fisher also has written about the topic. He might be able to give you specific makoros about that. Do keep in mind that's not as if saying the Psuk and Simra of Shabbos is something which is such a major issue in terms of you're not saying a bracha, you're just saying some additional Psuk.
Rebbe, what's the rule in regards to Tachanan?
What's the rule with respect to Tachanan? So the common practice in many places, in Karm B'Yavna, we didn't say Tachanan today. I guess as a festive day, one would not say Tachanan. Of course, as you know, in many communities, they would say Tachanan. There's some very great rabbi that was at a bris on Yom Haatzmaut, and this rabbi was of the opinion that one is meant to say Tachanan on Yom Haatzmaut. So he said Tachanan despite the fact that he was at a bris, so as not to give the impression that he's not saying Tachanan because of Yom Haatzmaut. So that each person will follow his practice, follow his poskim. So in any case, Rabbosai, let's point out the following. Let's close with the following brief number of ideas. Rav Nevensal, Rav Victor Nevensal Shlita from the old city of Jerusalem, once when he came to speak in Karbiyam, I think it's on Hanukkah. So he touched upon the issue as to Schalta the Geula, and the position which he took was his understanding that whether or not the events of our generation are or are not as Schalta Geula, some which depends on us. Depends on whether we take advantage of them properly. After all, as we've mentioned, as Rabbi Soloveitchik writes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knocks at our door. The question is what our response is. If in fact we are makir tova, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us, if we try to learn about Inyanei Eretz Yisrael, perhaps read up when we're going to be doing some secular reading anyway, read up on the events that took place, recent Israeli history, be able to appreciate what it means to have Eretz Yisrael. If we try to study in Yanei Eretz Yisrael, and we think about the importance of Eretz Yisrael, consider the possibility of living in Eretz Yisrael, realize it's not a simple issue. There are many halachic factors which go into the issue. And the issue of if one decides to move to Eretz Yisrael, where to move is not a simple issue. Perhaps some other time we'll discuss that. But if we do think about the issue, try to develop a proper appreciation of the issue, and try to do whatever we're meant to do to make Eretz Yisrael a more holy place, a more religious place, be mechazik Torah and mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael, be mechazik the number of people learning Torah, committed to Torah in Eretz Yisrael, do what we could do in general to make ourselves and our people a holier people, then in fact we will be zocha that this will be not only the aschat of the Geula, but something that will bring very soon the actual redemption. Chas v'sholom, if we don't do that, then who knows how long we'll need to wait till the actual Geula takes place. So something which is largely up to us. I'll just perhaps close with the following: the rugged shepherd. If I'm mistaken, I think he had a son-in-law that managed to come to Eretz Yisrael. Again, I do not remember the precise details, but he had a son-in-law that somehow managed to come to Eretz Yisrael. And this was at the time when the Turkish were running the country. And anybody that wasn't born here was going to be evicted by the Turkish. And he asked his father-in-law whether he's allowed to state that he was born in the country, despite the fact that in fact he wasn't. I think the rugged shepherd told him that he was allowed to do so. Why? Because after all, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, "Uletzion ye'amer, ish ve'ish yivoled ba." Ish ve'ish yivoled ba. And the Gemara says, what's this double lashon of ish ve'ish? Again, I'm sorry, you can track down the pasuk. Those interested later, I'll be happy to do so. The Gemara, and the Gemara says, "Echad hanolad ba, ve'echad hamitzapeler osa." That also one that's born in Zion, in fact, and also one that is mitzapeler osa, that seeks to desire to live in Zion, is considered to have been born in Zion. Not only those that were actually born in Zion, also those that seek to live in Eretz Yisrael. So I realized that for many guys, at certain points in their lives, moving to Eretz Yisrael is something which might not be so practical, but it's certainly something that we're meant to be dreaming about. One of the questions which were asked after Me'eve Esrim is Sipisa Yeshua, whether we looked forward to the redemption. Part of looking forward to redemption, of course, is looking forward to be able to live as part of the Jewish nation, as part of the holy nation in Eretz Yisrael. May we all be zocha for that. Okay, thank you. That's sheer part one.